What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. And I know my voice sounds really terrible, but I'm actually feeling a lot better in terms of my cold and everything. My energy level's back up. So my voice will be back to normal very, very soon here. So anyway, it is Wednesday, October 26, 2016. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open. 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today, and starting right off the top here, as you probably heard, Italy is all of a sudden getting a whole bunch of earthquakes. In fact, they just had another 6.0 just before we went to airtime. So, of course, that part of the world, very geologically active, Mount Vesuvius and so forth. So we'll be keeping an eye on that one. A lot of concern, not only for the people, but for all the architectural antiquities, art, everything. A lot of stuff over there. Now, we are getting reports from all over the country about election fraud. The corporate media is trying to poo-poo them and say, oh, it's all in your mind, it's human error. But down in Chambers County, Texas, the problems with the electronic voting machines were so bad, they had to shut them off and start using paper ballots. Now, this is not permanent. They're waiting for an engineer to come out from ES&S with an emergency software patch. So I guess the patch is so that people don't see their votes being stolen. And they're going to get that put together, because if they don't succeed in stealing this election for Hillary, then they won't get the contract for the website for Hillary Care version 2.0. But it really discredits the election, even if you accept them at face value. It's just glitches, it's problems, it's this, that. Doesn't it undermine the believability of this entire election? Now, another story coming on out. This is in Fairfax County, Virginia. People are getting their absentee ballots, and they're finding in those envelopes with their absentee ballots Democratic political literature. Now, this is a tacky no-no. It is illegal. You are not supposed to be electioneering in anywhere near the polls or the polling materials for them to be putting partisan political literature inside with the absentee ballots. That's just flat out a crime. It's illegal. They're not even trying to hide the fraud that's going on. Now, about a week ago, we had a story where the Project Veritas video people got this New York elections official on tape saying that the complete absence of voter ID was leading to massive fraud, and now he's been subpoenaed by New York State officials. Apparently somebody high up is very upset at this implication that overturning voter ID laws would have in any way, shape, or form a harm on the accuracy of the election system. So they're out there going to slap him around a little bit. Now, yesterday in Texas, they were talking about places like Amarillo, where the elections, where people voting for Trump or straight Republican have the presidential vote shifted to Hillary Clinton, was in Amarillo and some other places yesterday. Today, they're reporting it in Arlington and College Station. It's all over the place. The corporate media is out there saying, no, there is no fraud. Our elections are 100% trustworthy. This is just a calibration error on the software. Okay, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you had to calibrate the software on your computer, your laptop, your cell phone, or your tablet? You don't. It's a complete dodge. These machines don't need calibration. They're being programmed to do this, and they got caught. And you need to understand, dictatorships have elections to maintain the illusion of consent, to maintain the illusion that you are still somehow in control of this country. But we know they were fraud. They had elections in the Soviet Union. They had elections in Nazi Germany. And they have elections in the United States of America. Now, over at the ACLJ, they put together a list of hotlines you can call if you detect vote fraud. And it's for all the states. And not only did I put up the article, I actually put up a permanent banner ad from now until after the election where it just says, vote fraud, click here. And it will take you to this list of telephone numbers for your region. If you are detecting election fraud, if you are pushing the button for Donald Trump and the light for Hillary Clinton goes on, do not walk away. Stand there at that machine and call for an election judge and have that error documented officially. Then once the polling center says, yes, we understand this is an official report of a malfunctioning voting machine, which is as far as they'll go. They won't admit they're rigging it. But once you have the official report, then you call that hotline. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Jim in Vancouver, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, I just got a petition in the email. It says, we the people of Congress meet in petitioning Congress to meet an emergency session to remove George Soros-owned voting machines and their 10,800 signatures short. I don't know anything about this. It's some we the people, your voice in the White House.
Yeah, well, I just put that up on WhatReallyHappened.com, and before we go any further, I want to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates or rejoining the network. We're talking about just the massive election fraud being reported, and it's only the early voting. We're not even in the general election yet, and the fraud is just all over the place. Now, this petition is out there, and you can go ahead and sign it. And We the People has been around for quite a long time here. And the idea is basically that Soros is openly partisan. He's in support of Hillary. He's financially tied in with this voting machine company that has voting machines in 16 states, including the swing states. And the reason this petition is legitimate is not only because of George Soros' open bias toward Hillary Clinton, his statements that he's going to do anything he has to get her into the White House, but the fact that this particular machine has not actually been certified for use in U.S. elections yet. It hasn't gone through the process. And so, yeah, these machines should be banned, either officially or with a sledgehammer.
Good for you, Mike. I signed it. I'm gone.
All right. Well, anybody else who wants to sign it, it's up near the top of the main page at WhatReallyHappened.com. Thank you for the call, Jim. Bye-bye. Project Veritas is now out there with yet another video. This one involving where they faked a donation, a foreign donation to Hillary's campaign coming in from Belize. And the Hillary campaign held on to the money and was using it and running it around and everything until the first of the Project Veritas videos came out. Then they said, oh, well, we can't accept this donation. It's foreign and it's illegal. But, of course, up until the Project Veritas videos came on out, they were perfectly comfortable with this $20,000 donation that supposedly came in from Belize for the Hillary Clinton campaign. It is just so dirty out there. The only time they act like they're outraged is when they get caught. If they're not caught, they're going to keep on doing it. Now, over at Kim.com, there are tantalizing hints that somebody, possibly WikiLeaks, possibly an FBI insider, is getting ready to dump the 33,000 missing emails onto the Internet. And if any of them are dealing with official business, that's another perjury count against Hillary Clinton. What a shame we don't actually have any law enforcement left in this country for anybody worth more than $1 million. Because we can count on this government will do nothing about it. In fact, I'm expecting before Obama steps down, he's going to write a blanket pardon for Hillary Clinton, the Democratic Party, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and all these people for all crimes past, present, and future. You may not touch them ever again. That's how corrupt the situation is. Now, little issue about that. How far did FBI Director James Comey go trying to recover those missing 33,000 personal emails to verify they were personal? As it turns out, James Comey, in his 1-year-long investigation into Hillary's email server, never even bothered to search the Clinton homes. Didn't go up there, didn't get a search warrant, didn't go on in and say, we want to look around. They just sat Hillary down for an interview. She sat there and lied her teeth off, and James Comey said, okay, that's good. That's good enough. It looks like we investigated, and that's all we're really trying to do. Now, Donald Trump is out there on his speech and saying that it's time for President Obama to be investigated over the Clinton email server, and he's absolutely right. President Obama got up there on TV when the private server became known,
And he told all of America that he only learned of it at that moment on the corporate media. And it was a nonsense statement for him to make, because as president, his job is to be keeping an eye on the executive branch and whether they're in compliance with the laws or not. And now it turns out Obama was lying. He knew the server was out there. He knew it was illegal. He knew there was classified information on there. He was even using the server to communicate with Hillary Clinton using a pseudonym. We have this incredible criminal government, and the only reason Obama is not being impeached is because every single member of the United States Congress is just as crooked. There are no good people left anywhere in government. All the last few good ones have already been ejected, like Dr. Ron Paul and Cynthia McKinney. Those were good people. They got kicked out. More of the email leaks coming out from Podesta were showing how the Hillary campaign was thrashing around trying to find some way to deal with this private email server and basically acknowledging there wasn't any kind of a good answer. All they could do is just keep running in circles and hope people would get tired of trying to see past all the blur. Now, as you know, Judicial Watch is still investigating following their legal action on this whole issue. And the judge has allowed them to take depositions of Hillary Clinton's staff. Now, Hillary Clinton got to write out her deposition, which basically was, I don't recall, I reject that question, I don't recall. Clinton's IT official, John Bentel, in his deposition, answered over 90 of the questions with, on advice of my legal counsel, I decline to answer the question and invoke my Fifth Amendment rights. More than 90 times. If this was just an ordinary email server for convenience sake, why does he have to take the Fifth Amendment? Well, because he doesn't want to wind up in Fort Marcy Park. That's why. All right, we're going to take a phone call from Zane in Washington State, and I bet I know what you're calling in to talk about.
Yeah, hi, Michael.
How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I launched All Wars Are Bankers Wars onto Amazon Video Direct.
Now, this is the new one.
Different than
this is the new one, the new production. Okay.
Yeah, it has a lot. We've tightened it up, the two of us, and I've added lots of animations. This is a better version. But also, Michael, I wanted to tell your audience that Amazon, you got to bless them, they're giving us filmmakers access to the Amazon Marketplace, which is a whole other audience. These are direct sales of the video, which is different than YouTube, which allows for filmmakers to actually sustain their filmmaking craft, which is great. But, you know, what I wanted to talk to your audience about was, I sent you a banner last week. It's 27 inches high by 48 inches width. It's a 4-foot banner, full color. And if this movie can generate some sustainable revenue, what I'd like to offer to your audience is I could send them a banner along with some printed material, nice, slick, full-color flyers that they could use to advertise, to do a little, you know, with their feet on the ground, do a little activism here regarding this information about the banks. I mean, they could put this banner, I don't know, on the side of a car or van on Santa Monica Boulevard, or, you take it to a gun show. Or
I can't wait to see this. I'm afraid with our postal service here in Hawaii, the banner hasn't arrived. I mean, it was a complete surprise to me that you sent it, but obviously I'd like to see that. But basically, out there on Amazon, this is a pay-per-view, and I'm really not up on Amazon itself. Is this something Amazon Prime can see?
Yes, they can see this for free. If they are a Prime member, they can get a free Prime membership and watch it. And Prime is really great. I mean, if you ever need anything from Amazon, you just get on your computer, pick out your item, click. They've already got your credit card. It's very secure. And in 2 days with Amazon Prime, it's free 2-day shipping, which is really great. And there's lots of other content on there for people to watch, entertainments and stuff on Amazon. They have their own studio now in Amazon that produces original content. So I think maybe we should be advising people to drop their cable subscription and just log into Amazon Prime and see if that doesn't suit, and just surf the internet, because a lot of the stuff that's coming over cable, CNN and CBS, it's not worth watching anyway. So
it's a lot of reruns and everything. The only reason I still have cable TV is that's what brings my my internet in here. But obviously HBO. I'm a huge fan of the new Westworld. But for all the other channels that are out there, it's just well, I'm not going to name any channels because they may be potential advertisers someday. But it's like just constant reruns of the same stuff we've been seeing. The 67th showing of The Bourne Tedium, and it really is a vast desert out there, and I understand the economic reasons behind it. Plus, of course, this year, Hollywood has churned out just this huge train of box office bombs, like Denial and the remake of Ben-Hur and everything. But getting on back to All Wars Are Bankers' Wars, I've kind of had a hands-off approach on this thing. I view this as your project, and I saw the new version. The graphics fit the narrative a lot better. It's a lot more visually interesting to watch, and it does carry the story forward about why we're in the mess that we're in right now. So I'm glad that you finally got Amazon to take it. I know that some of your other platforms were being a little less than wonderful with you, possibly because they find the content offensive to their own credit line. But I await the banner, and I need to know the link that I can put up, because we're running an ad for All Wars Are Bankers' Wars, but I think it's still pointing to the older platform. So I need an update on where that should point to.
Yeah. The other thing, Michael, is if your audience could go there and, for a cup of coffee, you can rent this new version. It's $1.99, or maybe it's a good idea to buy the download and have it on your computer. Also, Amazon, I think they convert these files so that they play well on an iPad or a smartphone. So you have, it's compatible with these other devices. But it would really help me out. I mean, the more people that go and rent it and rank it highly, if I'm not going to tell you give it 5 stars, but if you really like it, give it 5 stars, because 5 stars means a good movie. And to other prospective people in the, prospective television watchers on Amazon, there's some 80 million or something out there. If they see that this is a highly regarded film that people are talking about and giving it 5 stars or 4 stars, whatever, they might be more apt to actually rent it or watch it and tell their friends. And if this becomes some kind of a revenue stream, I do want to cultivate a certain number of people across the country that would be willing to take a banner and just, we just need to put, boots on the street with these guys, regardless of who wins the election. We still need to, this is a central issue that we need to take care of, because
this is an issue that affects the entire world here. And, my interest in this project is to wake up the world to the reality that it is this specific form of banking that condemns us to endless warfare and poverty, and we want to get that message out there. We're going to have to take a break for commercials. Zane, you need to send me the updated link so I can make sure the ad for All Wars Are Bankers' Wars points the correct place. I didn't get that from you yet. Okay? So we'll talk to you soon. Got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call, and we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're getting on back to the crimes and corruptions that have been going on here. So we were talking about how Donald Trump is out there saying that Obama should be investigated now as part of this email server scandal. because he lied when he said he didn't know about it. That's it. You know one of the biggest problems we have with this country? If you lie to your boss, you get fired. If you lie to the government, you go to jail. But media can lie and politicians can lie, and it's just political talk. It's protected by the First Amendment. Lies are protected by the First Amendment, but by golly, we're going to slap those whistleblowers upside of the head. That's the real problem. I mean, there's an article here that came out of Infowars.com about how the Hillary Clinton campaign admits they're making up all this stuff about Donald Trump and grabbing women and everything. It's a swift boat campaign where they're just going to say all this kind of negative stuff, and then down the road somebody will say, well, it wasn't accurate. And they'll say, oh, well, gee, we're really sorry. We made a mistake on that one after the damage is done. But you know one thing that we could do to really clean up this nation is make it a crime to lie to the public, whether you are a politician or the corporate media or a corporation in general. If you deliberately misrepresent to the public, there should be a penalty. Just like there is when ordinary citizens lie to the government. Fair play for all. That's all I'm saying. One set of laws for everybody, which is how this country was actually started. Now, the polls are jumping around out there, and basically the latest Los Angeles Times poll has Trump at 45%, Clinton at 44%. Trump is also leading in Florida. Now, CNN has a different point of view. They're showing Hillary Clinton with a 5-point lead, and they had to only oversample Democrats by 7% to get those numbers. They got caught rigging their polling again. Turning to the international scene, it looks like there may be a political coup underway down in Venezuela, where the American puppet ruler, Enrique Capricious Capriles, along with his friends, are attempting to eject President Maduro. And I saw earlier in the corporate media, it's time to admit Maduro's a dictator. And every time they come out with something like that, it means the U.S. is going to go on in and overthrow somebody else's country and put in a puppet. Because they're out to erase this idea of a government spending the wealth of a nation on the people of the nation. They want to wipe that from the face of the earth. They want your grandchildren to grow up thinking that slavery to bankers is the natural order of things, the way life was meant to be, the way the gods decided we should all live our lives. In other words, the return to feudalism. Article coming out of Russia Today, Lights, Camera, Propaganda, and they're pointing out on how the U.S. government is, in fact, using Hollywood to crank out anti-Russian propaganda. And by the way, I saw this coming all the way back with Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. Ooh, bad Russians, Cold War stuff. And they're talking about how for most of our lifetimes, the fact that the CIA, and for that matter the FBI, was deeply embedded in Hollywood and television, was a carefully guarded secret, Operation Mockingbird. And today, it's kind of like everybody knows it. It's impolite to talk about it, but everybody knows it. I mean, I first collided with CIA when I worked at CBS Television City. And the CIA actually has a formal office, the Entertainment Industry Liaison, that will go on in and work with the studio heads to say, we need another movie that demonizes Russia. We need another movie that makes it look like going to war is fun. That's where all this stuff is coming from. Now, there's been a very alarming development in that NATO has started training Azerbaijan, their army, for psychological and information operations. And they're going to be running this course here. Now, obviously, that part of the world, they're going into the winter months. But next spring, it looks like they're getting ready to open a second front in this coming war on Russia. And they're really getting kind of reckless out there. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department is saying that Bashar al-Assad is the one preventing peace in Syria. It's not the fault of the U.S., which continues to drop bombs all over there. It's not the cause of the U.S.-sponsored terrorists. It's not even the cause of Russia. It's that Bashar al-Assad, if he would just leave and give us his country, peace would prevail. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. We're going to get back here to the phones here. Bob in Las Vegas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. I hope you're feeling better.
I'm actually feeling better. I know I sound terrible, but it's like my energy's definitely back, and I'm on the mend. And it's just the voices, the malady lingers on, and it's not just me. This thing is all over the neighborhood. Everybody's coughing and wheezing, and I think every time the vaccine and cold remedy sales slow down, somebody drops a test tube just to keep business going.
Yeah, I normally watch your show on YouTube in the evening. Here in Vegas, it's posted about 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And you were coughing quite a bit yesterday.
Well, I'm coughing a lot less. It's just my voice is down in this Russian bass range, and
okay.
Claire's already saying, well, we're going to move you to a different part of the score on the choir rehearsal, so we'll see what happens. Yeah.
On the election, if Trump were to win in a landslide, how do you think the corporate media would spin the result? Because all of the pre-election polls have Hillary ahead. I don't know, between 6 and 12 points. How would they spin that? Would they simply say, "Oh, a lot of the voters simply lied to the pollsters. We were as fooled as the average American was fooled by the result"?
They'll probably say something like that. The corporate media, like the politicians, will never admit that they made a mistake, let alone the fact that they were deliberately trying to disinform you. But this is not over, and the question is, how far are they willing to push this to get Hillary in the White House? Are they really stupid enough to try and reverse a landslide? Now, my understanding right now is that the independent media is all getting on board this idea where Trump voters on Election Day are going to be wearing red. It's spreading to all kinds of shows all over the place. This is really catching on. And if it really happens, and there's a sea of red out there, it's going to make it very, very difficult to sell anybody that this has been an honest election. In fact, at this point, I'd say pretty much that's gone, and the tide is turning against Hillary. Now, I'll give you a good example. Earlier today, before the radio show, Claire and I went out to do some of our weekly shopping, and there's this lady we know at the store that we've known for quite some time, and the first time I wore a Hillary for Prison T-shirt, she good-naturedly wagged her finger at me. Oh, we need a woman president. We need this. We need that. Today, when we went on in, okay, she asked if she could have my little Hillary for Prison button, which I gave to her. And that right there tells you, because this is not a woman who pays attention politically. She's not on the internet. This is just an ordinary American that pollsters would normally love. Just watches TV, thinks they have all the answers, and even this lady has done a complete 180 on Hillary Clinton right now.
Wow, that's good news.
Yes,
that's good news. Mike, do you have an article on your webpage about Oklahoma City?
You mean just in general? Yes, up in that little gray sub-menu at the top of the page, it just says OK City. And you'll
I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, it goes on in and it talks about the second Ryder truck and the secret army base, and how the guy who was running Elohim City was an FBI informant, and all of that stuff is in there.
I'm going to have to read that, because I worry. I heard one of your callers yesterday talking about these militia groups. They're ready, and it just seems like we're entering the environment is similar to how it was in 94, 95.
I meant to mention that because something you need to understand about many of these militia groups are actually creations of the FBI. I remember there was a big stink in the 1990s where the communications director for a group called the Tri-State Militia was outed as an FBI informant. And what they do is an FBI informant will go on out there to the gun shows and good old boys and talk about patriotism and everything, and they'll form a militia so they know the militia is under their control rather than one's being formed without them. And they sort of like gather everybody in so they know where the potential troublemakers are going to be if they have to do something. And then occasionally they'll goad somebody into doing something stupid so the media can go, oh, domestic terrorists. The militia movement is dangerous. The militia movement is dangerous. But if you start seeing, 1.5 million grassroots militias springing up, I think it's a good bet most of them are not connected to the FBI.
Right, exactly. Because then if they do stage an incident, they'll tar the entire, like they did in 95, tar the entire Patriot movement.
Yes.
And I think at least they'll try to send people back, get people off of the independent media and back to the corporate media as a result. So.
Well, that's going to be a hard sell. That's going to be a very hard sell.
Yeah.
And
okay, Mike.
Okay, Bob. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
We're going to let you go. Now, Donald Trump's son-in-law is apparently the head of a new venture by the Trump empire, if you will, Trump Media. And I guess Donald Trump over this last year has had a real wake-up call at how distorted and crooked and deceptive corporate media is. And he is sensing correctly that there is market demand for media that can be trusted. And so they're getting ready to launch this corporate media, and I think it's going to go forward whether or not Donald Trump is in the White House or not. And this will give the independent media the platform to go on out and have the same reach as the paid professional liars. And should that happen, I'm certainly going to send them a resume. Because it's time. It's time. We need to start breaking up these giant media conglomerates that are an organized group of paid professional Ministry of Truth propagandists. And we need to go back to that model of preserving a diversity of opinion so that Americans can analyze and decide for themselves what the heck is going on with the nation. Now, getting on back here, we're talking about the war zones, where the U.S. State Department is saying that Assad is the only one preventing peace in Syria by insisting that he go on being the president of Syria. If he would just leave and give Syria to the United States puppet, peace would break out. Why is that so hard for all those Syrian people to understand? That's literally what the State Department is trying to sell. There can be peace in Syria. You just have to give it to us. Nobody's going to go along for that. And all anybody has to do is look at the long record of U.S. invasions, interventions, drone striking all across the globe for the last going on 2 decades to know who it is who is the impediment to peace. The threat to world peace is not Syria. It was not Iraq. It was not Afghanistan. It is not Iran. It is not Russia. It is not China. It is not Yemen. It is not Libya. It is the United States of America invading country after country after country to try and bring the world back under hegemonic domination of the U.S. dollar, and the rest of the world does not want that. Now, getting on back to Syria, the British Special Forces are going to resume training the moderate Syrian rebels. Do you realize what a joke that is? Somebody comes on over and blows up your house and family. Does it really matter if they're moderate or not? The people on the ground in Syria, they can't tell the difference. It's a label created by the United States to sell you the idea that it's okay for your tax dollars to be spent funding and supplying terrorist organizations. That's where that word moderate came from. These are moderate terrorists, so we can give them guns and bullets and stuff. That's like saying we should let the moderate rapists go free. Or the moderate child molesters, we're not going to bother arresting them. Or the moderate murderers, our prisons are too full of marijuana smokers, we're going to let the moderate murderers go free. Do you see what a ridiculous thing that is? All right, we're going to go back to the phones here. James in Hawaii, aloha bra, what's up? James, are you there?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm getting over the cold except for the voice.
Well, I have a suggestion for you. Get yourself a nebulizer, nebulize maybe a teaspoon of colloidal silver in the morning.
Already doing it. Already doing it. I make my own.
Yeah, the nebulizer makes all the difference.
Yeah. No, I have a nebulizer. I have a little squirty thing that goes up the nose and everything. No, Claire and I are fully on board with nano silver. We make our own.
and we use it. But whatever this is, it is very nasty. It's lingering. It's hit the entire neighborhood. Everywhere we go, people are sniffling and coughing. So it's a nasty one. But I appreciate the input, and it is something we absolutely agree with.
That's something else. I just
okay.
Have you ever read The 13th Tribe?
Oh yeah, Kostler.
Yeah, that's an amazing book, and
well, it's been backed up by genetic research since then. Not that you really needed it. If you look, I mean, my first wife was Ashkenazi Jew, and you look at that lily white skin, and you realize these people were never from the Middle East. You know, let's wake up and join the real world. The Ashkenazi Jews are not descended from the Hebrews.
They're Indo-Turkish Aryans, and they're phallus worshippers. And the way they pick their religion is they're phallus worshippers who send.
I had a joke there that would shut this network down. Well, their religion changes over time, and it doesn't matter what they worship, and certainly that form of worship is certainly very common in ancient societies. But this idea, hang on, this idea that they own Israel because they're descended from the biblical Hebrews is complete and utter nonsense, and it has been disproven genetically. The Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Khazars, from Central Asia.
Right. But this group, their religion, has nothing to do with the Old Testament. Nothing at all. It's more. I'm not real strongly Christian because I have a feeling the New Testament was written for political reasons. And
it was written to sell Christianity to the rich Romans. They had the money. Early Christianity pandered to where the money was going to be.
More of a control freak instrument.
Well, all religions are control systems. But along the way, the practitioners of the religion, they want to make a buck.
This one wasn't on the dark side, you know, and
Wait a minute.
Well, I mean, on the real dark side, it doesn't say things like in the Babylonian Talmud where it suggests doing child molestation
well, yeah, I mean, it does have things in there about thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, although that's a mistranslation. It was actually thou shalt not suffer a poisoner to live. And if you look in that Old Testament, I mean, there's a lot of gritty stuff in there, and it isn't what it is or is not in the actual written document. It's how it's interpreted, and whether or not our new. Hang on, would you stop cutting me off, or I'm going to drop you right now. Okay? I'm in a grouchy mood because of the cold, and I'm really not in a mood to have to fight for the microphone here. Whether or not it is explicitly written in the New Testament or not, we know that there is a major, major problem of child molestation among the clergy of various Christian denominations, especially the Catholics. Maybe that's why they're getting all these quakes in Italy. But again, we're wandering off the subject here. This is not a show about religion. It's a show about politics. And getting the truth out about certain things. And the reality is the Ashkenazi Jews are not descended from the biblical Hebrews. They like to claim they are in order to steal it from Palestine, but it's not borne out by their skin color, it's not borne out by their history and linguistics language, and it's not borne out by genetics. Okay?
Well, the group that is controlling international finance, let's put it that way, are group that is either Masonic, Kabbalistic, Masonic, depending on what part of the Cabal they're in. I mean, you have.
Well, you know, people like to sign on to these things. They like to wear the labels. They like to have a sense of belonging. I was actually invited to join the Masons. We had a neighbor who unfortunately has since passed away, who was master of the local Masonic lodge, and he invited me to join, and I had to turn him down. Because one of the requirements to join is that you subscribe to a belief that there is some kind of a grand architect for the universe. And as I would not lie to him to become a member, I backed out with as much respect as I could. But my impression while I was there, is it was a little more than an insider's dinner club where they traded business phone numbers, and it wasn't some big
deep, dark secret. And I think there is a tremendous push in the corporate media to try and create this idea that the real enemies of our society are these far-removed groups on the other side of the world, the Illuminati, the Masons, what. So we don't realize that the real destruction to our society is caused by people right down there on Main Street, right in our town, right within reach, is the real cause of our misery. And they want us to go thinking about something far off on the other side of the world, unreachably remote, to basically save their own necks. James, thank you for the information about the nano silver, and thank you for the other information. We're going to let you go here. We're coming up here on a commercial break. And actually, we have one more caller before the commercial break. Sean in Washington State. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, I want to ask some advice. Pretty much my job is mandatorily saying I need to take a flu vaccine, and if not, I'm probably going to lose my job. And I was just wondering what your take on that is. Like, what?
Well, you know, I'm not a doctor, and I legally cannot come on out with any medical advice. It's really a decision you're going to have to make. Is it a really, really good job? Then you go ahead and get the flu shot and hope for the best. If it's time for you to find a better employer, maybe now's the time to do it. I wouldn't work for a company that mandated any kind of medical injection on any terms whatsoever, but that's just a personal choice for me, okay?
Yeah, it's a hospital, and they say that I have to take this flu vaccine.
Well, you know, hospitals are one of the sickest places that you can ever work. There's always, you know, you're exposed to every illness that comes in through that door. And so some degree of vaccination would certainly be justified, but there's a big hidden problem of cross-infection in hospitals where people are dying of other people's illnesses while they're in there.
Right.
You're really going to have to make that choice for yourself. If medical work is the only thing you know how to do, then it's going to be a tough choice. Okay. All right, I got to let you go.
Thank you very much.
We got to do a commercial break. All right, we'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones. Kyle in Pennsylvania. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Well, I do subscribe to the 80-20 principle. If you believe 80% of what somebody says and disagree with 20%, and that's certainly the case with you. As for you didn't join the Masons because you didn't believe that there was any sort of grand architect. I find that kind of crazy to believe. You think that this is all just randomness and happenstance?
No, what I'm seeing is warring factions. There is no unified plan in effect for the Earth. There are various large, powerful forces that are in competition with each other. I think it's one of the reasons why people like Game of Thrones so much is they're seeing how this stuff plays out. We have the U.S. financial interests that are looking out for themselves. We have the military-industrial complex want wars to look out for their interests. We have Wall Street that wants wars to bring the world back to be their debt slaves. But there are too many things going wrong for there to be any kind of a coordinated central system of control. I mean, we're dealing with people who generally see themselves as masters of the world, and they're not just going to obediently go along with some other power and authority waving a religious talisman of some kind.
Well, I'm just speaking on more of a religious sense, where that basically our reality is most likely a simulation, down to things like our DNA being extremely similar to computer code. We see a lot of the resolution as, you know, when you get down to atoms and quarks and the certain fuzziness of the universe that you just can't get past a certain level, certain limits and guidelines as far as physics go that can't be broken. Do you think that this is all just happened? That you don't think there's any sort of, you know, whether it's consciousness or I'm not saying I'm a Christian.
No, what is going on is, remember what Nietzsche used to say, from chaos comes order. Over time, all dynamic systems tend toward more sophistication and organization.
And that's what evolution is. And somewhere down the road, there'll be something that will view us as extremely simplistic and primitive. We're running out of time here, and I got other callers waiting on the line, so we're going to have this discussion sometime after the election, okay? And I know that the people are out there that are just thinking that we're all some kind of a computer game. There was actually a movie about it, The 13th Floor, where we're not real, we're a computer simulation. Running under Windows 10, no doubt. All right, John in Barbados, I'm going to start with you. We're going to have to take you through the station identification. What's on your mind?
Well, aloha, Michael. What I want to do is lighten the mood at the moment. I got a little joke.
There's the music, and save your joke here, and we'll go to your joke as soon as we have our station identification. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. We're talking with John in Barbados, and you have a joke for us.
Yeah, Michael, what do you call a thick, stupid idiot?
Boss?
Well, we call him a duh. You know, finger in mouth, bottom lip, duh.
Okay.
What do you call 2 thick, stupid idiots?
I don't know.
Duh. Okay. Now we call 3 thick, stupid idiots. Duh. Okay, now comes the killer question. What do you call a nation of thick, stupid idiots? Are you ready?
Yes.
All
right. Oh, boy, that kind of thing's going to get you banned on this show here. Got anything else for us, John?
Come on, Mike, I can see you smiling.
Okay.
Anyway, before we get to the dark doom days of this election, the amount of information coming out of WikiLeaks now, I think you'll say is pretty damning. I think there's enough information out there to start the impeachment process of Obama and Hillary before she even steals the election.
Well, in an ideal world, that would certainly be true, but what we have here is Hillary's campaign, the State Department, Obama's White House, and the corporate media all doing that thing with their finger in the ears and the eyes tight shut and saying, we don't see it, we don't hear it, and you can't make us, yeah. I mean, if the corporate media would cover any of this stuff, this campaign would be over and Trump would be headed for the White House. But we even have the corporate media chastising itself for saying they're doing nothing but reporting on all the good things about Hillary and hiding the bad things, and they're reporting on all the bad things about Trump and hiding his good things. The bias is fully on display. That's why it is up to us in the independent media, and that means you, to take this information and email it around, share it on your social media, and just literally shout the liars down. And like I said earlier today, this girl at the store that Claire and I go to, when she first saw the Hillary for Prison T-shirt, she was wagging her finger at me. Today she wanted a button. Hillary for Prison.
Well,
that's how you win the victory.
I'm thinking of writing a book, Michael. Stealing elections for dummies. I think I'm going to get Hillary Clinton to write the foreword.
Well, now I'm insulted. All right.
But it's so obvious that everything that's coming out, not just WikiLeaks. I mean, even the State Department, when they're releasing these emails, there's some real revelations coming forward, and
there really are. But I think Americans are realizing that it's not calibration errors, it's not glitches and snafus. They're realizing our election system is intentionally designed to allow our elections to be stolen, to try and trick us into thinking we're still in control of this country, to trick us into our consent to be governed with this lie that somehow we voted for all of this abuse. And Americans are waking up to that. One of the weird things about abused victim syndrome is that they come to believe they deserve what's being done to them, whether it's an abused child or an abused wife. They start thinking they've done something to deserve it, and therefore they won't stand up and fight back. And for the American people, it's, as the taxes go up and Obamacare goes up and our infrastructure is crumbling and our kids are being killed and crippled in the wars, we're sitting there saying, well, I don't know, I guess I deserve this somehow. I did something to deserve this. No, you did not. Your country was stolen from you. Your money is being stolen from you. Your children are being stolen from you. What are you going to do about it? Stop being a victim.
I think people are realizing that there is a severe problem in the system in the U.S.
Yeah, there is. It's like that moment.
And just look at the recent gun sales, Mike.
Yeah,
there is going to be a problem. If Hillary steals this election, there will be a problem.
They're already running out. Gun stores are being emptied right now. It reminds me of that point in the movie V for Vendetta. When the guy is saying, V is right. Something has gone horribly wrong with our country. And most Americans are now saying exactly the same thing. This is not the country we thought we lived in. It's not the country we were taught that it was in those public schools. It's standing exposed as something very horrible and vile and mutated. And we are at the same point in the history of the United States of America that the Soviet Union was shortly after Chernobyl, made it obvious the degree to which the Soviet government was lying to their own people and to the world. And now the Americans are going through that same experience, and I ultimately think it's going to end exactly the same way.
Well, I'm 73 years old, Michael, and I was in America in the 60s, and it's unrecognizable to what it used to be like. I mean, I was
John, if you remember the 60s, you weren't really there. And before you talk again here, we got to take a minute to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just rejoining our network. But all jokes aside, I grew up in New England farming country. That's where I spent my childhood. That's where I sort of started becoming a person in 4-H and Boy Scouts and the usual indoctrination. I remember our social studies textbooks that were just designed to make us want to hate Russians and communists, and we could never ever get along with them and all of that. But at the same time, of course, being in New England, I grew up with the lore of the American Revolution. Because in a very real way, that's not just American history, that's family history. And I remember when my family moved out to California, it was almost a shock how the kids in the California schools really didn't know our early American history at all. And so I have a strong affinity for it. One of these days, I'd like to get to Washington, D.C., to the National Archives and see the Declaration. But I think for most Americans, they're going through this apotheosis of realizing that our country is vastly different from what we believed it to be, and it has become something very, very ugly. And I was asking the other day the question, how do you feel about the United States of America? How do you feel about being part of what's going on? And most people get very, very uncomfortable when you ask those questions.
Well, I know, because I've studied quite a bit of American history, particularly the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and I find it amazing how little, young Americans know about their own Constitution and these important dates and documents of history.
Well, the dates in the documents themselves aren't the important part. It's the ideas in them. And our present government doesn't want Americans to understand that there are supposed to be rights that the government may not take away. In fact, under Common Core, the Bill of Rights are described as, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, are literally described as privileges that the government has generously bestowed upon the people and may, upon necessity, withdraw. No, that's not what they are. The Bill of Rights, that's basically the hands-off. You, the government, are never under any circumstance to touch these. or you're no longer the legal, legitimate government. So they're already brainwashing the next generation of Americans so the government can say, well, we've decided that you shouldn't have freedom of speech. We're going to send out the thought police. You have to think as we tell you to think, say as we tell you to say. And certainly the Fourth Amendment was destroyed by the NSA. The government doesn't even pay attention to the 10th Amendment. They ignore the Enclave Clause. The Second Amendment is constantly under attack. The NSA break-ins into our computers is a violation of the Fifth Amendment, not just the part about self-incrimination, but using our resources for government business without compensation. That's a big one when you multiply it by how many computers are involved with the NSA's net. And now, of course, the First Amendment's been under attack with so-called free speech zones, where you will be silent, Schweinhund, and you will not speak your mind unless you're in that little tiny cage over there by the woodshed.
It's amazing the difference, as I said, Michael, from when I was in Middle America, in Edwards Air Force Base, and what have you, to now. It just doesn't gel between.
Well, I grew up in a time when the prevailing wisdom is, I may not agree with what you're saying, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And we need to go back to that. Instead of all these whiners running around saying, oh, he can't say this, it offends me, my feelings are hurt, I'm feeling threatened, I need a safe space because of all these terrible things they're saying. What a bunch of sissies the American people have been turned into.
Yes, if I may say so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the offense.
Yeah, that's it, Ben John.
So you're offended, so what?
Well, who's that Australian comedian? I'm blanking. Stephen something, I think. And he comes on and says, okay, you're offended. Be offended. I don't care. You know, it's not like something's going to happen to you, like you get up the next day with leprosy. You cannot have freedom of speech and an offense-free society. The two are mutually exclusive. If you're going to have freedom of speech, you have to accept that you're going to be offended by some things. Okay? I'm offended by boy bands.
It's not just freedom of speech, it's freedom to hold your own opinion, to hold your own thoughts about everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't tell you how much email I get about, why are you supporting the Russians? The Russians are our enemies. And my answer is always the same. I'm a big boy. I'll decide who my enemies are. I don't need you to tell me.
Okay then, Michael. Well, thanks for having me on again, and I hope you enjoyed the joke.
I'll let you know when I'm feeling a little bit better. Thank you for the phone call, John. We're going to switch over to Carrie in British Columbia. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Hanging in there. What's going on?
Good. Well, first-time caller. I'm actually a recent listener to you. I think I've been listening for the last couple of weeks, and I actually listened to your broadcast on YouTube with the commercial-free type of broadcast, which is nice for me. I've been off work for a while, so I've had a lot of time to, surf the web and that kind of thing. I kind of know what's going on, but I think one of my biggest problems with this whole idea with, the election down there in the United States is the unwillingness for people to really understand how close we are to a nuclear war, and who's behind it and all those kinds of things. I mean, the information's there. We know who supplies ISIS and who created ISIS and all those kinds of things. We know who's surrounding who. I mean, any real critical thinker can actually look at the information and think for themselves, like you profess to do, and you do.
I also recommend it for all of you. Don't take my word on anything. I can make mistakes. I can get lied to. I want to make this point because I was telling somebody else this earlier today. The whole goal of what I've been doing for the last 22 years is to convince people to stop trusting those highly paid prostitutes and correspondents on the corporate media and to trust themselves to figure out what's going on. That's the ultimate goal. Because people who think for themselves, people who are skeptical, are very, very hard to enslave.
Absolutely. And, that prostitute is a take from Ken O'Keefe, another person that can speak the truth. And another one is Pat Condell, who just released a new YouTube video. I'm surprised I hadn't seen him sooner, but He tries to stay out of the business of the United States and that kind of thing. But he's got a new video out there on YouTube called America's Moment of Truth, 7-minute video, and it's a good. I like people that speak clearly and speak with reality at some point. But my question was how can we make people focus a little bit more on the impending danger of having 10 ballistic missiles? You said this the other night. 10 ballistic missiles, each carrying 10 nuclear warheads, wipe out the entire West Coast. And, I think that's important that we try to focus on that a little bit more. And I know, the Hillary Clinton and the Donald Trump thing going on right now is bizarre. I mean, anybody that can actually think for themselves can see the bias in the media. It's incredible. And even here in Canada, I have a real problem just with our local news station here, the radio news station, News 1130. They are brutal propagandists, and I think this morning they actually mentioned something about Biden taking Donald out the back of a barn somewhere and something like that. I mean, this happened I think a couple weeks ago or a week and a half ago. But it's just every time they say anything about Donald Trump on this local news station here in Canada, it's always a bash on Trump, and
yes.
So I think that's one thing we have to do. And the other thing is, I question is. With Trump and all these people coming out of the woodwork, the media and their bias, and then we've got all the accusers and all their violent minions being sent to his rallies, which are incredible, by the way. We watch them up here, and they're unbelievable. But what are the chances of him, whether or not he's elected, which I hope he is, or if Hillary steals it, what are the chances of him actually going after these people with a lawsuit and actually getting somewhere with that? Because I think that's important. Because you can't let people slander you, especially if you.
No, you can't. But like I said, I am fully expecting President Obama, as one of his last acts in office, to issue a blanket pardon to the Clintons and all of their cronies for all crimes past, present, and future, which would basically remove them from the threat of any litigation. Trump can't sue them. They've already been pardoned by the president preemptively. And the unfortunate problem is that Gerald Ford actually established that precedent of a president preemptively pardoning somebody in order to forestall prosecution and investigation. And that, of course, was Richard Nixon, because everybody wanted that stopped dead in the water, because a full-on trial, investigation, and impeachment of Richard Nixon would have ripped the lid off the John F. Kennedy assassination being something other than the crazed lone nut at the book depository. Like I said, there are two categories of secrets in political life. There are the little tiny secrets that are used as fodder during election year. This person is having sex with that other person's sheepdog and all the rest of the stuff. Then there are the great secrets, the ones that could actually bring the entire government down. The truth behind John F. Kennedy, the truth behind 9/11, the truth behind TWA 800. And I think right now one of the greatest of the great secrets is what Hillary Clinton was really doing with that private, weak email server and charitable foundation, given the Clintons' past history in 1996 of transferring U.S. secret technology to China in exchange for campaign donations.
Incredible. And, even with the uranium deal and all that kind of thing, she bashes, Russia, but, yet she's allowed them to procure 20% of America's uranium. And, it goes back to Clinton as well, when he was, Bill Clinton, when he was governor of Arkansas, pardoning all these people, all these friends of his and that kind of thing as a governor.
Yes. And,
anyway, that was a question. But, looking at Jade Helm now, I look at Jade Helm a little bit differently as well. And, with what your prior, the old guy from, 73-year-old that had spent some time in America in the 60s, what he kind of alluded to was that, I guess, things aren't the same as they used to be. But I think that, this Jade Helm thing, going back to that, is maybe it was a setup because they kind of knew what was going to happen with this election, or what could, eventually happen, that people would kind of rise up, especially if it's found that, these there's been blatant voter fraud, and she actually does steal the election, you're going to have some people in the United States who still have their rights to bear arms, which I think is important and something here in Canada that is strictly hindered. We are not allowed to defend ourselves in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, here in Canada, if someone was to break into your house in the middle of the night and you found them in your child's bedroom and you beat them to death, you would probably, or most likely, be charged with manslaughter of some type, right?
Now, there's a wise and prudent law. Anyway, listen, Gary, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are going to have to take a break for commercials. We got another caller waiting on the line, and we will be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones. Dustin in New Jersey, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. Yeah, what's your take on Russia asking Spain to have them refuel, and then Russia pulled out after NATO, made a big deal about it? How come Russia decided just to pull out instead of, because Spain probably would have still let them in.
I think Russia decided they weren't going to put Spain in that position of having to make a choice. It was a very diplomatic thing to do. Now,
but they can refuel in Syria, though. They had plenty of range left on that carrier. I just don't understand why they even bothered.
Well, because do you let your gas tank on your car get all the way to empty, or does sometime when you're down to the bottom half, you just say, I'll fill up here? I mean, it's exactly the same thing. The scale's a lot larger, but when you're a ship at sea and you're not under sail power, you're always keeping an eye on the fuel load you're carrying and topping it off when you get the opportunity and not running the risk of getting so low on fuel. And so Russia probably figured law of the sea, and, we're going to go in and, gas up our carrier in Spain, have the tires rotated, and the windshield washed, and all the rest of that stuff. And NATO all of a sudden gets in a huff, how dare you come on in and, use our gas station? So Russia said it's not worth it. And,
they can... It's the same with Brussels. Brussels is pushing a lot of this, Mike.
Of course Brussels is pushing this. You think the ordinary people of Europe want to go through another world war? This is all coming from Brussels. It's all coming from Washington, D.C. It's all coming from London. All these money junkies want another war to re-enslave the human race to war debt for another 100 years. That's what's behind all of this.
And we know it's coming because the West is a dead economy. When are people going to... The West is dead. Eurasia has risen, and we are debt-filled, dying West, basically. And this is what this is about,
Those Chinese, they're actually manufacturing things for sale. How dare they do that, So...
Yeah, it's sad, Mike, because, you look at just this with the refueling, we're coming close because, and then Raqqa...
It's a tantrum is what it was. This whole thing with NATO was a tantrum.
But do you see with Raqqa now where the U.S. wants to go in there with its allies, but Turkey doesn't want that because of the Kurds problem. So Turkey, I think, is going to cut. I don't know if Turkey's going to beat them to the punch, because for Raqqa. Maybe that's why Turkey went in, because of Raqqa.
Well, we're not really sure, but it's one of those weird inversions. In the real world, a tripod is one of the most stable forms you can have, but in politics, a tripod is the most unstable when you have three different powers, competing with each other.
But you're just really pushing. You only could poke the bear so many times. It's it's amazing, and people don't realize this. Putin's a moderate. He's not a hardliner. If he was a hardliner, we would already probably be in a war because there's no way a hardliner would be getting poked this many times. People just don't understand that.
Well, they do. Well, see, part of the problem is, and we're hearing this, is that Washington, D.C. is quelling concerns about Russia with the spin that really we're just bluffing them to back down in Syria. There isn't going to be a nuclear war. There isn't going to be a hot war. You guys are just being silly. We're just trying to bluff the Russians down, but don't tell Russia. And Russia's basically called their bluff on this. If this is all chest thumping and bluster and bluff, great. Go have fun. But in a charged climate like this,
it's only going to take one hothead with a detonator to turn this into a firestorm.
It's not, though, Bluster. This is arrogance and ignorance. You know, this is the arrogance and ignorance of the West. You know, and a portion of the population also is arrogant and ignorant. You know, it's like, but this is not bluster from NATO. You know, I mean, I think they're going to go full tilt, Mike. You know, that's where
it's going to be a mistake. It's going to be a mistake. Yep. We do know that. Oh, actually, we got to take a break here. Dustin, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
We're going to let you go. We're going to come back and take another phone call. Then we got to do some news. We're running out of time, and I got like real news to talk about. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. We're going to take one more phone call, then we're going to close the phone lines for a while so I can get some news out there. Mike in Tennessee, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Greetings, Michael. Is it true that you've never been to Washington, D.C. and looked upon the Constitution under glass?
It's true. I've never been to Washington, D.C.
Neither have I, but my wife has, and the missus said when she stopped to read it, they said, move along. She said, well, I'm trying to read it. They said, no, you can't do that. It's for looking at it. It's not for reading. What she noticed is it says lowercase United and just a single capital letter S, and then it was the United States. It was the Constitution for, F-O-R, the United States of America. And what you get on your pocket Constitution says the United States, the Constitution of, meaning it's of them. It's their product. For, meaning we the people provided this to them as their walking papers, their orders.
That's true.
It's a different document, totally. And
well, it's a different it's a redefinition of the relationship between that document and the government. And the way it's shown in the National Archives is what was intended. Because the U.S. government didn't exist until after the Constitution was finished. And so the government is subordinate to that Constitution. The authority of the government rests on that Constitution. If they're not playing by the rules, it's not a legal, legitimate government.
Well, it's supposed to be we're supposed to be the authority of the government. We, the people, are supposed to be the authority because we're supposed to be the creators. But be that as it may, your caller from Canada needs to go to universalsupremecourt.org because right now they've got a choice coming up. In Canada, you've got the choice of being a Canadian subject citizen, or you can side with the Native Americans that are basically breaking free from Canada right now. Mm-hmm. They've had legal precedents set in 2014 where the Supreme Court of Canada mistakenly acknowledged these people are sovereign and all they've got to do is stand on their own 2 feet. And right now they're in the process of doing that, and those people that stand with them will too gain their freedom under this new form of government, which is basically the people self-governing. It's independence, self-sufficiency, and self-governance. And if that sounds good to you, go to universalsupremecourt.org and check it out.
Well, we're going through the same thing here in Hawaii because back in 1994, I think it was, President Bill Clinton signed a public law apologizing for the U.S. theft of Hawaii, and in that public law acknowledged that the people of Hawaii never legally surrendered their sovereignty. They're still a sovereign, independent people, and while Bill Clinton just thought this was politics and make everybody feel good and everything, we're really sorry about stealing Hawaii, we're not going to give it back, but we feel really bad, this is my frowny face. But the people of Hawaii have taken that document very, very seriously, and there is now a nation of Hawaii. They have their own passports. They're being internationally recognized. And they're basically doing the same thing. They have got a certain amount of land that has been ceded to them by the state government of Hawaii, so that there actually is an existing nation of Hawaii on planet Earth. They have their own foreign minister. We've had him on the show before, and the same thing. They're trying to make that decision to not be part of the United States anymore. The U.S. is countering by trying to bring the nation of Hawaii under the same system as the Native American reservations of a nation within a nation, meaning, yes, you've got your own little nation, but we still own you, and you have to do what we tell you to do. But they're making that breakout here. And they got a lot of informants in there trying to sabotage the place, and it's really very, very ugly. And it's another reminder of how the federal government thinks it's their divine right to lie, cheat, steal, kill, and just in general play dirty to get what they want.
Well, for those people that are tired of being a well-kept slave, now's the time to step out of the box, step out of the boat, engage, and take back what is rightfully yours, your sovereignty.
I agree, and it goes right into Milton. You know, I would rather be a master in hell than a slave in heaven. And that's exactly where we are right now. All right. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go. We're going to close the phone lines for a little bit because there are some news items I need to get out to you. Putin is announcing the newest addition to Russia's nuclear arsenal, and it's the RS-28 Sarmat missile. It's designated Satan II by NATO. It flies at 4.3 miles per second. And it's designed to evade anti-missile systems. Remember Reagan's Star Wars? Well, that's now obsolete, even those parts of it that they actually got to work. And it's able to deliver warheads that can deliver 40 megatons of energy at the blast. And it can basically carry, I think, 10 of the 40 megaton and another dozen or so of the smaller tactical weapons. It's a major weapon. Now, because of current nuclear treaties, it will be limited to just 8 warheads, but it's capable of carrying more. So are the American missiles. If you were to go down and see, for example, the Trident, and we do have one down here at the bottom of the hill in the Submarine Museum, and you will see the bus that delivers the MIRV warheads is actually slotted to carry more than 8 warheads, but they're only allowed to carry 8 by treaty. They can put decoys in those other slots. But this is a major missile. Now, it's not in service yet, but Russia is basically announcing it ahead of time. And I think Putin is trying to send a message. This thing will be available in 2 years' time. If the U.S. starts a conventional war with Russia, it's certainly going to go longer than 2 years. And so what Putin is trying to say is, be very careful before you start anything, because you might not like the way it's going to end up. And I think Putin is realizing the deficiencies of America's military-industrial complex, which is all about looting the American people for huge amounts of money, for weapon systems that may or may not work. During the whole Cold War, most of what was produced by the military-industrial complex was absolute junk. But they all knew, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more, it was never really going to be used. So all we had to do was make it look good in the public demonstrations and the tests and build a bunch of them, let them sit there in the sun until it was finally time to decommission them and throw them away. There were a few successes, like the A-10 Warthog attack aircraft, which has proven to be one of those occasional amazing aircraft, like the original DC-3, the Ford Tri-Motor, that they just last forever. You can't break them. But the Pentagon wants to ditch the A-10 and come up with some new, very expensive piece of whiz-bang that probably won't work. The Air Force wants to hang on to the A-10. It is an effective ground combat aircraft. Now then, as you know, over in the Philippines, Obama has had a major foreign policy blunder. He dared to go into the Philippines and lecture them not to shoot drug dealers. We love our drug dealers. We don't want to harm our drug dealers. And, of course, President Duterte said, thank you, but this is our country, and we'll make our decisions what we're going to do. He's kicking out the U.S. He's pivoting to Russia and China. It's a major, major foreign policy disaster. And so now, all of a sudden, we're seeing this very alarming story out of RINF.com, where the U.S. may consider destabilizing Philippines government, overthrow the government like they tried to do in Ukraine, put in a U.S. puppet, and bring them back into the servitude and slavery of the United States, where they will buy our weapons from the United States. The Philippines will be a forward base for U.S. forces, and they will not be allowed to shoot their drug dealers, because that's the American way. Israel is sounding a warning. Their next war on Gaza will be the last. And they preface it by saying, we don't want to have a war. We've never wanted a war. It's always the other guy's fault. But the next one is going to be the last. So what's going to happen is some agent provocateur for Israel is going to fire another one of those little bottle rockets over the fence
and hit some dirt in Israel, and that will trigger the genocide of the Gazan people. Let's see. Major protests in South Korea over the deployment of THAAD, the Theater High Altitude Air Defense System. The people of South Korea do not want to be the ground fodder in another U.S. war. Turning to the economy, apparently on yesterday, Italy's Monte dei Paschi di Siena Bank had to stop sales or trading on their stock. They had a single-day 23% stock plunge. And there had been a surge earlier in the day based on some plan to secure new financing because Monte dei Paschi is in serious, serious trouble. And apparently that deal fell through. Deutsche Bank is signaling another warning that they're about to report the results on the last quarter, and they're saying get ready for a shock. The numbers are not good. And there may be a bit of a ripple effect through the stock markets from that. Now, Greece, as you know, is already talking about another bailout for their debt problems. And it's not really a bailout. It's another loan. Greece is living on its credit cards. They've got 6 credit cards. They're all maxed out. Greece now needs a new credit card. And it's not going to make things any better because every penny of money that is loaned to Greece is immediately sent right back out to pay the older debts. They are hopelessly enslaved by this accumulated debt. And as a result, it doesn't matter how much bailout or dealing is being done, Greece's depression is going to continue. There is no way out as long as they play the banking game by the rules the private central bankers made up, and that too is by design. The dream of private central bankers is they own everything. And you will work yourself to death over your lifetime to make them a little bit wealthier. And then when you die, they'll just turn you into fertilizer or something. Now, having learned nothing from the 2008 mortgage-backed security fraud meltdown based on these subprime mortgages, Wall Street has been engaging in subprime credit cards. And we've all seen it getting all these mails in the mailbox. You are qualified for a new credit card. Just sign here and you will have a credit card with a $250,000 limit on it. Because private central banking is a pyramid scheme. It only works as long as there are ever larger populations of new borrowers to allow the creation of new money, part of which is siphoned off to pay the interest on the old money. If people stop borrowing, the whole thing grinds to a halt. So they're out there just giving credit cards to everybody, including people who should not normally qualify for one, hence the term the subprime credit card customers. And to nobody's surprise, credit card delinquencies are now at the highest level since 2012. And part of it is because of the breaking of the securitization chain. Now, in the good old days of responsible banking, you'd go to the bank and you would apply for a mortgage, and you would present your earnings record and whatever collateral you had and a down payment. And the bank would look at that and make a carefully considered decision whether to give you the mortgage or not based on your qualifications. The general rule being that banks will loan money to you once you prove you don't really need it. But starting in 2008 with the mortgage-backed security fraud, the issuance of the mortgages was broken off and handed to other companies, to brokerages. And they were there to just sign the mortgages and get them out, and then they were bundled and transferred to somebody else. And so the people issuing the mortgages could care less whether you qualified or not. And we have the same thing today. The people cranking out these credit cards, they don't care if you can pay them off or not. It's not their problem. It's somebody else's problem, usually the taxpayer in the long run. The taxpayers are tapped to cover all these losses and keep this crooked banking system going. Now, Twitter is planning on hundreds more job cuts starting this week. And remember, Twitter, like other social media, lives on advertising revenues. the fewer people reading Twitter, the lower the revenues are, the harder the economy becomes for Twitter. And it looks to me like this shadow banning of all of Donald Trump's supporters may not have been such a good idea after all, because that's a lot of ad impressions that didn't happen. And finally, this story. You're going to love this one. This happened over in Hong Kong. A British banker, Rurik Jutting, was over there working for his bank in their Hong Kong office. He has been arrested and imprisoned for torturing and killing a prostitute and 2 Indonesian women. And apparently during this 3-day torture on this prostitute, he did this amazing amount of cocaine, and apparently it's come on out during the investigation. He has fantasies of returning to Great Britain to kidnap and torture teenage girls. Well, I mean, compared to that, laundering drug and terror money, cheating customers, rigging LIBOR, and fixing gold and silver prices, that's just small potatoes. It's misdemeanors when you see what these bankers are really capable of. He tortured and killed a prostitute, high on cocaine. This is a banker. Not exactly a splendid representative of what is supposed to be an industry that survives on its reputation of trustworthiness and seriousness. Now, for those of you on Obamacare, you better sit down and take a deep, deep breath. The Obamacare increases are going to be severe, double-digit increases. And story coming out of Detroit News, Obamacare continues to crumble. It has not worked since it was started in 2013. It has been a disaster since day one, between the website, the soaring high premiums on health insurance, the sky-high deductibles, which make that insurance virtually useless. You're being forced to abandon your existing plans that worked for a plan that will not work. And over on CNN, they had a liberal commentator saying that this is all the fault of the Republicans. It's not Obama and Obamacare. The Republicans are to blame because they didn't repeal Obamacare. They didn't vote it down. It's their fault. They let it happen. Therefore, blame them. Don't blame Obama. Don't blame the health insurance companies. Don't blame anybody with any money. It's the GOP's fault for letting it happen. I mean, that's pretty much out there. That's like saying that the American people deserve a dictatorship because they didn't stop Hillary Clinton. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here and talking about the immigration refugee problem all over the world, but starting here in Europe. Angela Merkel came on out recently on this German news network, basically saying that everybody in Germany who's worried about Islamization should play the flute on Christmas Eve, and that will make it all better. Merkel is clearly losing it. Up in Sweden, the government has now issued a ban on Christmas streetlights because they offend the Muslim migrants. That's absolutely the wrong way to go. If somebody wants to come live in your country, they should adapt to your culture. Even Teddy Roosevelt said that. That's just politeness. When I was working in Germany and Italy, I made the effort to learn German and Italian and be very careful that I did not violate any of their local customs. That's just politeness. And yes, they spoke better English than I spoke German and Italian, but they respected the fact I'd made the effort. And now we have this new generation of migrants, refugees, and even here in the U.S., illegal immigrants who come on in and say, you must speak our language. You must change your country to be just like the country we ran away from. Which, I guess if we do that, wouldn't they run away again? Might be worth a try, I think. Now, apparently, this is a story coming out of the Express in Great Britain. Syrian boys have now been banned from a public swimming pool after girls as young as 9 years old were sexually assaulted. So whoever thought that they were just going to pour all of these differing cultures of the world into one formless mass and everybody would just hug each other and kiss each other and get along and put arms around each other around the campfire singing Kumbaya, guess what? It did not work. Story coming out of government slaves commenting on our government is still actively hiding how many of these illegal immigrants and refugees are bringing serious contagious diseases into this country, including drug-resistant tuberculosis. Now, when I was a kid, tuberculosis was still a major problem in the U.S. It was killing people. And there was always the Easter Seal campaign, we can defeat tuberculosis, and eventually they did. Tuberculosis was eradicated in the United States. Well, guess what? It's back. Donald Trump is right. We need a wall. Just for the public health, we need a wall. We need to check everybody who's coming into this country to make sure they're not bringing in tuberculosis or Ebola. Why is that so hard for the liberals to get? Got to take a break for station identification. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And up in Michigan, the Waterford Township Board of Trustees just unanimously passed a resolution against allowing any more refugees to settle in the area, primarily because they do not think the vetting process by the U.S. government is good enough. And they're absolutely right. We have all of these refugees coming in who have criminal records, they're violent criminals, they're rapists, they're fleeing prosecution in their own country, they're carrying dangerous communicable diseases. It's not a question about whether the vetting process is good enough. There isn't one. Now, not too surprisingly, there's been a spike in illegal immigration into the U.S. ahead of the election. And according to a story over in hotair.com, illegal immigrants are now acting as canvassers on behalf of the Hillary campaign, going door to door trying to drum up support to get people to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now, that leads me to the following idea. If Hillary Clinton steals the White House, we should let the illegal immigrants and the dead voters pay all the taxes and fight all the wars, and just leave the rest of us alone. In fact, that might be a good way to be running elections in the future. When you have a president who is starting wars and demanding more money and everything, go back and find everybody who voted for that president and say, you're first to the front lines, and you're first to pay these taxes. And those of us who had better sense get left alone. I think we should have, in our elections, along with the candidates and everything, a shopping list of government programs, of all the things the government wants to spend the money on. And we just go down the list and we tick off the ones we agree with. Money for child care? Yes. Money for education? Yes. Money for research into alcohol consumed by Asian prostitutes? No. Global warming? No. More money for Wall Street? No. More money for Israel? No. And everybody just sends that in. And whatever you agreed with, your tax bill will reflect your share of that program you signed up for. It's just a little shopping list. That would be freedom. That would be a truly representative government. When we decide what we want our tax dollars to go on and what we don't. Rather than just this current system of, take all my money and spend it as you want because you had a better slogan than your opponent last election and you look better on TV. It's a stupid way to run a country. All righty. Now, Karen Finley, the former CEO of the red light camera vendor Redflex, has been sentenced to 14 months in prison on a federal corruption charge up in Ohio. Natural News actually had an article coming on out saying it's time for everybody to face up to the reality. Our entire society is rigged. Everything is rigged. The weather reports are rigged to support global warming. The economic news is rigged to keep the Wall Street bankers in power. The reports on flu and everything, they're rigged to keep us buying their products. And they're absolutely right. We've allowed our entire society to become corrupted. And here is a really good example of that, again from Natural News. Remember when the Zika virus first came on out, and it emerged in Brazil, there was this epidemic of microcephalic babies in Brazil that exploded the year following a mandatory vaccine campaign for expecting mothers. And of course, we can never draw a link between vaccines and microcephalic babies, even though the caution sheet in the vaccine says, yes, this can cause microcephalic babies, but the public isn't supposed to know that. So they said, it's the Zika virus. The Zika virus is doing it, and it's in these mosquitoes, and it's everywhere, and it's now in Florida, and we've got to spend huge amounts of money to eradicate this mosquito. And we found out the governor of Florida was financially tied in with the company that got the contract to eradicate the Zika mosquito. And a lot of people were saying, let's be careful about this. We don't really know. Even the scientists in Brazil said, no, there's no link, because where the Zika is and where the mothers with the microcephalic babies are doesn't line up. And Zika's been around for 75 years, and we've never seen this problem with microcephalic babies before. But here in the U.S., the media was all about Zika smallheads, Zika smallheads. That's just inevitable. That's where we're going to get the next generation of politicians. Now, they've come on out. No less than the Washington Post is now admitting, Zika, it doesn't cause any brain deformities after all here, and and they're trying to make it look like somebody else was doing a hoax here. But they're basically saying, yeah, the epidemiology doesn't line up. Where the Zika is not where the microcephalic babies are. So even the Washington Post is out there saying it was an infinite deal of nothing. But they got to sell a lot of vaccines and medicines and mosquito eradication supplies from all these companies that they all own stock in. And that, of course, makes it all okay. We're going to take a minute here to do a shout-out to our on-air affiliates who are rejoining our network. Here in hour number 3, we're talking about health and safety issues. Let's see. Snowed in Dublin, Ireland. Snowed in New Hampshire yesterday. It's snowing in Michigan right now and in Nevada. And Al Gore is out there saying, oh my goodness, it's just white lumpy rain. Now, we have an article on the front page of WhatReallyHappened.com from the Washington Times. And, no, actually, this is from Fox News. And it lists 36 companies that were funded with taxpayer money to deal with human-caused global warming, and every single one of them failed, leaving you, the American taxpayer, picking up the $2.2 billion, with a B, dollar cost. A lot of money in global warming scaring. Literally billions and billions of dollars taken from your pocket and put in the pockets of all these cronies of Obama and Al Gore who had these harebrained ideas for things that will stop global warming, like ethanol, gasoline, and windmills and so forth. And it was all just another hoax and another scam. Now, as you know, last Friday there was a major internet outage. The Dyn system, which is a high-volume DNS server for high-volume websites like Twitter and Reddit and so forth, and it was under attack, apparently using a botnet built out of Internet of Things appliances. And what did the corporate media say? Well, we think it may be Russia. We think it may be Russia. It's definitely Russia. And then they pulled back from that and they said, well, it's Donald Trump supporters. It's Donald Trump supporters. Well, a senior U.S. intelligence chief has basically said this all came from what he calls non-state actors. Basically, he's saying it could have been a bunch of bored kids that did this. That's how delicate and fragile our IT infrastructure is. And wasn't it supposed to be the job of the National Security Agency to protect our IT infrastructure in order to strengthen it, so it could defend against a cyber attack? And a bunch of script kiddies in a basement somewhere almost brought it all down? Story coming out of AlexanderHiggins.com. The United States is no longer insisting that Russia hacked the Podesta emails. In fact, they're not even saying that the hacks came from Russia or the emails came from Russia. Story we had earlier in the week is Podesta hit a wrong button on a website and somebody got his password and login credentials. And that was it. But this bash Russia, bash Russia, bash Russia has backflashed on them tremendously. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the phone lines here for the rest of the show because I've hit all the important stuff. By the way, the company that wiped Hillary's email server got $1 million in government loans immediately afterwards. If they can't pay back the loans, guess who picks that up? Now, Apple Computer is actually losing money right now. Their stock is performing very, very poorly. And part of it has to do with this idea that the smartwatch is dead. It didn't really catch on. And I think one of the most arrogant and reckless things that Apple did was they had a version of the Apple Watch with real solid gold trim and wood. It was a fashion statement. It wasn't just an Apple Watch. It was the Apple Watch for the ultra-rich. Now, in an economy where people have money, where they have high-paying jobs, you know, they can go for the gizmos, the whiz-bang. We don't have that anymore. And the smartwatch sales have been tepid. Plus, Apple is now dealing with competition from other companies making smartwatches that are not copies of the Apple Watch, but are smartwatches that pair with Android devices. And they're a lot less expensive. And the market has imploded. Now, I actually got Claire an Android smartwatch to go with her phone. And the truth is, after getting it all set up, she never used it. It just didn't bring anything into her life that she needed. And Apple, believe it or not, was looking at what they were going to call the Apple Ring, or the iRing, which was just literally a ring with a tiny round screen that was going to, I don't know, flash lights at you or something. It's really not useful. If you've got the cell phone, what do you need the iWatch for? If you're going to have a watch that does the things your iPhone doesn't do. This one has an altimeter, for example, among other things. Now, it gets a little bit more bizarre up there in Silicon Valley. Microsoft is now working on their entry into the field of quantum computing. And they're, they're basing their design on what are called non-abelian anyons. This is a quasi-particle, and physicists aren't even sure it exists. And Microsoft is getting ready to bet on building a quantum computer using this particle, and nobody's really sure if it's there or not. I imagine it's going to be a new project for the Large Hadron Collider out at CERN. The good news, of course, is this new quantum computer, which may not work at all, will be running Windows 10. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Andy in Texas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I was just watching. You come on in my area when the news comes on and stuff. So I'm sitting there watching the news, and they're showing Hillary Clinton down in Florida just bashing Donald Trump for having the audacity to be a billionaire and want to open a new hotel in Washington, D.C.
There's never an alligator around when you need one.
Exactly. And so her big thing was he's using undocumented workers to build the hotel and stuff. But isn't this the woman who has never done anything about undocumented workers or illegal aliens or anything? Never done anything in the 30 years she's been in Congress or whatnot.
No, she's opened the door. I mean, she's opened the door. She has worked to allow the illegal immigrants into this country. Then she turns around and tries to attack Donald Trump for giving them jobs, if in fact he did. I mean, talk about hypocrisy. And yes, Donald Trump is a billionaire and he's taking time off to open a hotel. What was the last thing the Clintons actually made themselves? Nothing. These people have spent their entire life living off the taxpayers. It's been a quarter of a century since this woman drove her own car. They have not produced a single thing to justify their wealth.
Well, she's a reverse Robin Hood. I mean, because she robs from the poor and gives it to the rich. So, I mean, it's pathetic what these people do. And
well, that's not entirely accurate. Hillary Clinton robs from the rich because the poor don't have anything, and then she keeps it herself.
Okay, well, I'll buy that. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. I mean, the news is on, and I'm watching it, and again, it's just a bunch of BS. So,
yes, it is.
You have a good day, Mike.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, we're going to let you go here. And, boy, I hope I'm still going to have a voice to the end of this show here. And like I said, I'm actually feeling better. My energy is better, but my voice is just completely shot. Let's talk about lobbying here. As you know, there has been a big push for legalization of marijuana. It is opposed by certain business interests, such as tobacco and alcohol, who are dead set against the idea of you growing a recreational stimulant in your own backyard and having fun without having to give your money to some corporation somewhere. And, of course, the U.S. government resents the loss of tax revenues if you're making your own stuff. And that's also the reason why people are not allowed to distill liquor. Now, amateur winemakers can make limited amounts of wine or beer in their home for personal consumption. They can't sell them without that tax sticker, and it's a big headache to even do that stuff. Today, if you have a still, you go to jail. There was that reality show about the moonshiners that was going on for a while there. I love that one moonshiner who was also the chief of the volunteer fire department. I thought that was really, really cool. Now, when I was a kid, again, growing up in New England farming country, the law was different back then. You were allowed to own and operate a liquor still. You were just not allowed to sell what you made or even give it away without getting a tax stamp on it. They didn't care what it tasted like or even if it killed people as long as you were paying taxes on it. And my grandfather, the one who used to get drunk with Richard Nixon, actually had a personal consumption still. It was hidden in the forest behind his hunting cabin up in the White Mountains, and he showed it to me one time. And I don't even know how much of the current generation ever knew about this. But he showed it to me, and it would produce, I guess, about maybe 2 gallons per run. And it was kind of cool to see that whole thing. But the alcohol companies don't want you growing marijuana. Tobacco companies don't want you growing your own marijuana. And there are other corporate interests who see legalization of marijuana as a direct threat. And one of those is the prison industrial complex. Because most of those people who have been thrown into these slave labor camps are there on marijuana charges. In fact, it's the majority of the people working in these prison factories are there on marijuana charges. If marijuana is legalized, then they're going to have to go on out and actually try and run a business with free labor. And all of the companies that support these corporate prisons, the food suppliers and everything, they're seeing their revenues go down. They're making money by figuring out ways to throw people into prison factories, slave labor camps. And by the way, this is exactly what the Nazis were doing at places like Auschwitz. They were slave labor factories where the people were kept in there and made to make material for the German army. That's where it all came from. And they're doing the same thing in this country. The Fourth Reich is alive. We're living in it. Now, let's see. One more piece of lobbying news, and I know we've got a caller waiting on the line. I'm going to get to you after this next commercial break. Apparently, Coca-Cola has mounted a massive lobbying campaign against all the states that are talking about taxes on soft drinks to curb overconsumption of sugar because of its connection to obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, and diabetes. Okay? We want to go on selling you a product that makes you sick because we're making money off of it, and we oppose any effort to try and limit your exposure to these dangerous products. That's fascism right there. Got to take a break for commercials. Back with more phone calls after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go to the phones here and let some people do some talking for me while I still have a voice. Joel in Wisconsin, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
In regards to voting machines, we've heard multiple reports where somebody has voted for Trump and it shows up for Hillary, and the excuse is that the voting machines aren't perfect, so they screw up. Has anybody heard of anybody voting for Hillary and the machine goes to Trump?
Not a one.
Geez. Well, okay, that sounds a little odd, but I'll accept that.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so long.
Thank you very much. We're going to switch over to Jeff in Idaho. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. This is in reference to some of the stuff on the National Association of Attorney Generals that I sent you. For the voting machine fraud, I think in that stuff it indicated if you request a paper ballot to avoid the voting machine, we would that would work out. And for your Trump media resume, I think what would be the smart thing between now and the election cycle would be to basically get people to get their voter ID, get a national system together where you and all these independent journalists are basically telling people to basically take their state AGs and go after these guys and ask for impeachment of Obama, Comey, Lynch, and Hillary on the voting fraud. And essentially then this is a pre-vote. If you get like the 50 or 60% that you can, by the way, the Trump people and all these other people could go and get those to the state AGs, then you basically preempt the voting fraud through the electronic thing, and you have a physical count, and then you can basically invalidate all those voting machines that have been used improperly, sequester the votes, and then basically find the illegal people and then remail them back out ballots so that they have to revote again with photo ID. And just like your comment about this New York commissioner that was beat up based on like him saying the truth about the DNC donkey bus voting fraud between precincts.
Yes.
Is this is one way to essentially preempt their narrative of election fraud on November 8th with something that goes after the equal footing doctrine on all the AGs to basically impeach these guys.
Well, the problem is we have less than 2 weeks until the actual election, and there's no way any of what you've described could take place in that short a time. Plus, there's the supremacy clause. The crimes you're talking about are federal crimes. State attorney generals cannot bring federal charges without the cooperation of the U.S. attorneys in their state, and these U.S. attorneys are all working for this power structure. I would like to be able to say there is some kind of a legal remedy for we the people to deal with all this election fraud. But we've got a judge in San Diego who literally came on out and said, yes, there's fraud going on. There is no legal remedy once they say the election is certified. In other words, we're being told by the machinery of the legal system, it's okay for us to steal the election, and you as loyal Americans just have to go along.
Yeah, the judge, though, that's not a precedent because that's all bogus. All I'm saying is that...
Wait a minute. Hang on. The fact that it's bogus does not mean it can't be used as a legal precedent. I mean, there's a lot of bogus nonsense that's out there.
Well, they shredded the documents, and that's fraud.
That's exactly right.
There's no certifiable election without the evidence.
No, once the election is certified, the records can be destroyed legally. The problem was those absentee ballots outnumbered the number of votes for Hillary and should have been counted and were not. And the judge was saying, yes, this was done wrong, but the state of California has certified and there's no way legally to reverse that. We're dealing with a system that is corrupted from top to bottom. Anybody thinking that they're going to go into a courtroom with some magic incantation of the law and change anything is living in a dream world. We are going to have to hang on. We are just going to have to wait and let this system bring itself down and focus our attention on how we're going to design a better system to replace it. There's no magic word, there's no magic law, there's no secret treaty or anything that is going to change anything. The system has locked us out, and we're just going to have
One last question, Mike.
Okay.
One last question. The Smartmatic are not allowed to be used in federal elections, but they can be used in state elections. So that's the only angle I would try and look at for the crossing of what you just discussed.
Well, you're absolutely right. These Smartmatic machines are not certified for the federal elections. They should not be in these 16 states for the upcoming general election. But again, when you have the entire system is corrupt, they're going to say, well, we're going to give them an interim certificate. They're going to say whatever they think is going to get you to go along here. We're going to have to just wait for this system to destroy itself and then be ready to replace it with something a lot better. That's really the only...
Mike.
Okay.
Keep going. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye. And aloha, welcome back to the show here. We're going to go to the phones. Mike in Brazil, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. First, I got to tell you, I'm close to getting my master's in political science just listening to your show. Rightly, I call you Professor Mike, literally. Okay. So, I'm going to be working on this master's in political science. You're great. What can I tell you? I mean, I have no words to describe.
You're going to turn my head if you keep doing that. I have problems keeping my ego under control as it is. You're not helping.
Okay. All right. No, first of all, the last caller said something about the certified elections. Okay. Anything that's certified can be decertified.
Well, apparently not in California. At least this judge in San Diego was saying that there was no way that he could get the state government to decertify the election. And it could be total bovine excrement. But again, when
I'm sure it is, because...
Okay, the point I was making with this guy is simply this. Okay, disabuse yourself of this idea that somewhere there is a law or legal mechanism or a button or a treaty or something that will cause our government to change. Our government will not change. They love things exactly the way they are. The money pours out of your pocket into their pocket. Your children go and be killed and crippled in their wars. They don't want anything to change. They won't let it change. We're just going to have to be patient and let them destroy themselves the way the former Soviet Union did, and we need to focus our attention on building a better, more tamper-proof government to take over this land when they're gone. The only alternative to that is violent revolution, and I'm not willing to support that. Of course, I'm running out of reasons to say why it's a bad idea.
Well, my second question is there any way we can replace this system of electoral college and institute a system like the one they have in Switzerland? Like, people vote directly. It's called direct democracy.
Yeah, well, no, I think we should have that. And, with the blueprint...
Because you can't bribe all these people, I mean, if you have a bunch of people in the electoral college, they can all be bribed.
I agree. Well, when we restart this country, I mean, definitely there's going to be no need for an electoral college, and definitely we're going to have direct participatory democracy as much as possible, rather than a centralized government that's a one-stop shopping center for all the corrupting influences in the world.
Yeah. Okay. What I was going to say, the next thing, I'm not sure if you know this. Probably you do, knowing your vast amount of knowledge that you have. I noticed that the Great Seal of the United States has the David Star right on top of the eagle. It's disguised as a bunch of stars, but it has the form of that six-pointed star. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I looked at
my passport and I said, I can't believe this. I put my magnifying glass and I said, this can't be true.
Mike. Okay, there is an historical reason for that. Okay, first of all, if you count the number of stars, there are 13. and it represents the 13 original states of the United States. They are formed into that shape of the Star of David because when the nation was started, one of the people who donated to help set up the Congress and buy all the furniture and everything was Jewish. And back then there was no nation of Israel. There was no favored religion. That was one of the reasons so many Jewish people came to the United States. They didn't have to deal with a nation that had a Christian government or a Muslim government or anything else. And I can't remember this individual's name, but he was Jewish, and he was very generous in personally, out of his own pocket, financing the furniture for the first Congress. And so basically, they arranged those 13 stars into the Star of David, and it used to be on the front of all of the chairs and podiums of that first Congress, and you can still see it in the museums of the furniture carried forward from the founding of the nation. And that's why it's there. And there's nothing nefarious and there's nothing hidden. Back when the nation was started, everybody knew where it came from, and it was just a way of like saying thanks for all the furniture.
Thanks for clarifying this for me, because I was looking at my passport and I looked at the Great Seal and I said, wait a minute, this looks like David's star. What is it doing on an American passport? And anyway, let me ask you my last question. I'm shopping for a new computer. Okay, I'm tired of Windows. What do you recommend? You're computer savvy, so what do you recommend? I know they're all backdoored and all that stuff, Linux, Apple. But you think a Mac would be a better option to Windows, or what's your opinion on that?
The question comes down to what are you using the computer for? How deep do you want to get into the computer? Are you a computer nerd, or are you just an ordinary consumer and the computer is just another appliance for you? Because that definitely shows.
Well, I'm writing code in Fortran. Okay, so I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, you want a Linux system. If you're doing any code...
So you think a Linux system would be better for Fortran?
A Linux system is better for any code development, certainly for C, but you can get Fortran compilers for Linux systems. But Linux systems, it makes it a lot easier to get in and talk to the bare metal and see what your code is doing down at the hardware level. And definitely, if you're doing any engineering, you want to be on Linux or Unix. And once you learn Fortran, contact the people over at Voyager, because they're desperate to find Fortran programmers to keep the Voyagers running.
Oh, yeah, I have a bunch of programs. I'm actually developing a program in Fortran. But I wasn't really sure if Mac has compilers for their system.
They probably do. They probably do. They probably do, but the problem is Macintosh is intentionally designed to protect the computer and the end user from each other. Macintosh is meant to be an appliance. And the same thing with Windows. They throw so many layers on there because they assume you are writing software just for their system. And code development is just much easier under Linux. When I was writing all my cryptography stuff, I was doing it on a Linux platform just to get the code developed, and then I ported it over to a standalone on the Windows machine. But I've tried to get into code development on the Windows platform. They just make it so difficult. It's clearly designed for companies that are writing software rather than individuals who are trying to learn and develop code here. Linux is definitely superior for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because I walked into a computer store the other day, and I saw actually a laptop with Linux installed on it.
Yes.
And I was thinking, I said, should I buy this or should I go for a Mac? Or they had also one in Windows 7, which is pretty much rare now because Windows 10 took up all the market, competing market. So
okay, well, Mike,
I appreciate.
Okay, before you go, are you on a Windows machine now?
Yes, I'm on a Windows machine.
Well,
Windows 7.
Okay, well, if you've got Windows 7, you can set it up either as a dual boot into Linux, or you can set up the virtual machine which will allow you to run, for example, Windows XP, and you can put a Linux cut in there to see if Linux is going to work for you before you make that commitment to the hardware change. Anyway, we're going to let you go. We've got a bunch of callers. We're running out of time here. We're going to switch to Al in Canada. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. It's been a while since I've been on the phone. When I originally called, you were talking about sugar and pop, and it's not really sugar. We know that. It's high fructose corn syrup. But getting back to your last caller, build your own computer.
Yes.
Because if you buy something off the shelf, I don't care who makes it, you don't get the same warranty as you do when you build it yourself. You get a 5-year warranty on a motherboard. You get a lifetime warranty on RAM. You get a minimum 3-year warranty on a hard drive. I mean, you don't get that kind of warranty from these off-the-shelf companies, especially HP, and Dell used to be good.
Well, I agree with you. Our situation here in Hawaii has deteriorated, and all the little shops that used to sell parts to make your white boxes, they've all gone away. This machine I have here is a custom job. When I had to replace my wife's computer, I literally could not get the parts to build the machine I wanted, so we had to actually order something online and have it shipped here. They didn't even have what we needed down there at Best Buy. And it angers me no end that I have to go to Best Buy, but all the other stores, CompUSA is gone, Circuit City is gone, there's really no choice there. And unfortunately, all the people at Best Buy, they're clueless about what they're dealing with. You know, they're there, they've got the list of, this is what we're pushing today, and they have no idea. They have no idea. Even some of the people at Geek Squad I've had to clarify things for.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, you're kind of way out there, right, in Hawaii.
I thought you were talking about my personality.
I know you better than you know me. Just remember that. They haven't built sidewalks over the ocean yet, have they? Because I can just walk down the street and go to a fairly decent computer shop and buy parts, and it's been there for over 10 years. I mean, I've been doing this. I remember when it cost me $280, Mike, for a 30-gig hard drive.
Well, what I miss is, I grew up in an age where you could build your own electronic devices, where you could buy transistors and capacitors and resistors. And, I built a metal detector when I was a kid. I built a crystal radio receiver out of a Quaker Oats box, and I really love doing that kind of stuff. And Radio Shack. Okay, listen, we're running out of time. I'd love to walk down memory lane with you here, but I got a bunch of callers I need to get to. So let's switch over to Robert in North Carolina. Robert, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Thank you. What I wanted to say is I want to fill everyone in on what's happening in North Carolina. We've had another one of our Mo, which is the Moral Monday, and basically they're pushing victimhood. It's a Reverend Barber, and they play religious music. They do a lot of hallelujahs. If the right did that, they'd be thrown off the stage. Their main topic is attacking the governor and voters' rights. We had a judge in this state who said that the precincts were so gerrymandered that it was called surgical racism by his own term, surgical racism, and everyone hears this. We had the HB2 law, which the governor decided to go ahead and it got pushed on him by the Republican legislature, which is extremely conservative in this state. They were talking about African Americans, the poor, about how they're going to take our water rights from us. What they're doing is they've been painting the Republicans in the state as racist, and our Governor McCrory is from Duke Energy. And the Democrats controlled the state for so long, and we gave him a chance because he was a moderate mayor from Charlotte, North Carolina, a huge city, banking center, number 2 banking center. And but he's refused to clean up the coal ash ponds. He worked with Duke Energy, so we've got a lot of problems here. And I think that if Trump loses, it's going to be because of the Republicans in my state, unfortunately.
Well, I don't think Trump is going to lose. I think he's going to have the White House stolen from him. And I understand you've got issues in your state, and you need to be taking care of those issues. But I think we have to stop thinking in terms of Trump winning or losing. In an honest election, he would be winning in a landslide no matter what your state did. And I don't mean to denigrate your state, but it is only one of 50. And the polls are showing, absent the election fraud, Bernie Sanders would be the Democratic nominee, and Trump would be on his way to the White House. Anyway, Robert, I gotta let you go. I got a bunch of calls. I'm trying to fit in before the top of the hour and the end of the show. Rick in Minnesota, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Are you looking for Sherry or Rick?
I'm looking for Rick in Minnesota. Oh, you're Sherry.
I got the click to
Okay, we lost Rick, so let's go with Sherry. Sherry, what's on your mind?
Thank you, Mike. Yes, listen, the drug companies, are trying to discredit the sale of marijuana for medical purposes, right? They want to discredit, say it doesn't really heal anything or help anything. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if they want their hands on it later on, that maybe they're going to try to put something through where they can get their hands on it and their stamp of approval.
Oh, they're already doing it. They're already doing it.
Okay.
There are patents going out on Kaahumanu. I mean, it's what they did with Valium. The active ingredient in Valium comes from a plant called valerian, which you can grow in your backyard. You can get pills of ground-up valerian root down at the local health food store, but Big Pharma took that molecule, made a slight change to it, threw a patent on it, and marketed it as Valium, and it's become one of the most abused tranquilizers out there. And they want to do exactly the same thing with marijuana. They don't want you to be able to grow your own medicines in your own backyard. You will buy it from them, or you will be going to jail.
Right. Here's a thought. Medical marijuana would make a great revenue for state-run health care. Any kind of industry like logging or agriculture or fishing or anything that didn't have a tie to Wall Street would make a great revenue for state-run health care. And the real affordable health care anyway, the real train wreck, the real Obamacare train wreck, which I always called Mission Impossible, was the insurance company's gravy train. Now they're trying to come in and get back to normal. We've got to get. I'm Bernie Sanders on this issue. I mean, I'm a Trump fan all the way, but Bernie made a point here. We got to get them out of the picture. State-run health care, to me, will work. So, that would be a good funder for it.
I mean, what we have with our current system of government, which is no longer representative of we the people, because our nation does not consist entirely of inherited wealth and attorneys, we have a government that doesn't really know what they're talking about, and yet they presume to come on in and tell us how to run our lives. Whether it's our engineering companies, our construction companies, and all the rest of it, it's utterly ridiculous. And I think we're at the point where we have to start freeing ourselves from this idea that we even need a government. Look at what happened in Belgium, where their central government shut down and they weren't able to organize one for almost 2 years. Things got better there. Same thing happened in Spain. This idea that we need a giant centralized imperial government to take care of us, it's a fiction. It's as much a fiction as this ink and paper currency coming out of the private central banks. Anyway, listen,
We're
Cher.
the sovereign government. Thank you, Mike.
All right, need to let you go. We're going to come back with one more phone call in the end of our show after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Final segment. We're going to take one more phone call from Wes in Idaho. Aloha, Wes. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. A question. Who should be allowed idealistically to vote? Should people on welfare with a conflict of interest that can raise their income? How about people who cannot pass a test on the Constitution? As a young man, I was in front of class trying to make a case for the 18-year-old vote. It was still 21, but now that I've looked at life differently, I understand there is a whole lot of growing up that is done between the ages of 18, 19, 20, and biblically.
I don't want to go into the Bible. I don't want to go into the Bible here. The reason the voting age was lowered to 18 is because that was the age of the military draft. And most people were saying, this is ridiculous. We have a government that is telling these kids, you are not old enough to vote for who is sending you off to die in war. And that definitely was something that needed to be corrected. Now, in terms of those other issues, you have to be very, very careful about disenfranchising. I think the system we have here right now is perfectly fine. That if you are a law-abiding, legal American citizen, you have a right to vote, but only once. If you are not a citizen, if you are here illegally, if you are a convicted felon, then no, you shouldn't be allowed to vote.
Well, I just wanted to put it out there, but on welfare, the definition of democracy is, they all commit suicide because when voters can figure out they can vote for the politician that promises more benefits, there she goes. She's gone.
Well, that's what brought down Imperial Rome, was when the masses realized they could vote themselves bread and circuses, and there does have to be restraint. That's why the United States was never started as a democracy, but as a republic with democratically chosen leaders, so that there would always be somebody high up whose job it was to pour ice-cold water on foolishness. And that really is the job of the president, to stand there and give Congress the ice bucket challenge when necessary.
I just wanted to put the thought out there. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to close the lines here because we're almost to the end of the show. If you are using Adobe's Flash Player, and we don't have Flash inside the What Really Happened website because of all these problems, there is a new update. They have found yet another exploit out there that will allow remote code execution on your machine. This whole malware thing is totally, totally out of control. And wasn't this supposed to be the job of the NSA to keep all this stuff from happening, to find the ransomware authors? Once again, we have a government agency costing billions and billions of dollars, abusing our civil rights, and in exchange we get nothing. All right, time for me to get on out of here and do something to heal my voice for tomorrow's show. You are all part of the independent media. Your job is to take what you learn here, very gently present it to those of your friends who are still believing those TV screens are telling them the truth. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.